most important questions about your pitch is obviously, what should go into your pitch? What are the questions you need to answer? And for that, I want to talk about a 5-minute pitch with slides that you would do at an event. Because as I said, that for me is the queen of pitches that you can base everything else on. And the first thing you want to do when you go up on stage at an event is you want to have a cover chart. And that cover chart should have a teaser image and a teaser sentence. Why is that? Because when you go up on stage, this chart will already be visible to the audience before your time starts. So don't waste the opportunity of using that slide to get some information across to the audience. For example, if you're doing a real estate startup, have a picture of a house on here and a sentence that says, making it easier to buy houses. That way, people can already prepare for what's coming next, and they can think about, have I bought a house? What were the problems? What has somebody else told me about problems they had when they bought a house? So this is a great way of getting people ready for the topic that you're going to talk about. The next thing you want to do is, if you have them, use some kick-ass numbers to get people excited about your startup. And this is something that's done a lot in the US, and it's done a lot if you're pitching at an event where many startups pitch during a day. Because people can't listen and they can't care about all of the startups pitching. So if you have something where you can say in the beginning, I'm going to pitch to you a startup that has been growing 100% every month, that's something where people go like, oh, this is interesting, I better pay attention. Or this could also be a partnership. If you say, I'm going to pitch to you a startup that has recently signed a deal with Google, everybody is going to be interested and they will continue listening to what you're saying. If you don't have these numbers yet, if you don't have these partnerships yet, you don't have to do it. But if you have something like this, use it like a hook to get people interested in what you're doing. After that, you want to talk about your team. Because your team is really important for anybody who's going to invest or really care about your startup. Again, in the US, everybody talks about the team in the beginning. In Europe, there is still a lot of people that talk about it in the end. For me, either way is fine, as long as you think about what makes more sense. For me, talking about the team first makes sense if you do something that needs very specific expertise. So if you, for example, want to do a better search engine than Google, make sure you tell me all the way in the beginning of the pitch that you have the people that are going to be able to do it. So tell me we have a team of 5 ex-Googlers that were on the core team for search. Because if you talk about building a great search engine without telling me who you are, I might be going, nah, they probably can't pull it off. So make sure that I don't have that question in my mind. If you do something that needs less specific expertise, you can also talk about the team in the end. When you've talked about your team, now you want to start really talking about your startup. What you do. And this, you definitely want to start by talking about the problem that you're solving. Don't go right into the details of the app that you've built and the features you have, because then people won't understand why you're doing what you're doing. That's always the basis they need to know. So tell them about who is out there who has a specific problem that you're going to solve. And try to really make the audience feel the pain of that user of yours that's out there. Because the more they feel that pain, the more they will believe in the giant opportunity that you have solving that problem. Once you've told people about the problem you're solving, obviously the next step is talking about your solution. But again, don't go straight for the details, don't go straight for the features. Make sure that you have at least one sentence that very clearly describes the solution on a top level. What are you doing? One sentence. And only then you go into the details of your product. And your product you can obviously show with designs, so screenshots, you can have a video of your product. If you don't have designs yet, you can even do mock-ups. But you have to show your product. And the more you can show of it, the better it is. And this actually leads to a big question that everybody has when they go up on stage at an event. And this goes back to this guy, Shakespeare. And Shakespeare, he wrote an important piece, right? And he wrote something where the main character says, to demo or not to demo? That is the question. And that really is the question for a lot of entrepreneurs. And a lot of people will give entrepreneurs the advice, don't do a live demo. It's too risky. Stuff can go wrong. The Wi-Fi might not be working, your server might have a problem, your intern just did something that broke your tool. And all of that is true, but I have 2 reasons why you should still do a live demo. Because what you have to understand is, a live demo is the sexiest thing you can do. The sexiest way of showing your product is by showing it live in action. A screenshot or a mock-up or even a video will never be as impressive as seeing the real thing in action. So knowing this, you should really try to do a live demo. But when people tell you not to do a live demo, they have good reasons for it, because things can go wrong if the Wi-Fi is down, for example. But 2 reasons why you should still do it. One reason is, if this happens, total train wreck, right? The Wi-Fi is down, it seems like nothing is working anymore. And this can happen with a live demo. There's no doubt about it. But the fact that you still do it tells me one thing about you, and that is that you have courage. And courage is something that's really important for an entrepreneur. So investors are specifically looking for entrepreneurs that have the courage to do something that's risky. So by doing a live demo, and a live demo being risky, you prove you have courage. That's one reason why you should do a live demo. But going back to the picture, what do we see in the picture? This guy. What's he doing? He's on the phone. He's making sure somebody knows that something is wrong. He is handling adversity. And handling adversity is another thing that's really important for a startup founder. And it's another thing that investors really look for in a startup founder, because they know that in a startup, stuff is going to go wrong. And if you're able to handle adversity as a startup founder, that's something really valuable. So if you do a live demo, and if the Wi-Fi isn't working, or if your app has a bug that you didn't know about, great. As long as you can manage to still do a great pitch, to stay in control and to stay calm, you can win again, because people will see how you act under pressure and that you have a plan B and that you can still get the work done. So even if your live demo goes wrong, that is a chance to shine for you as an entrepreneur. Those are the 2 reasons why I think you should definitely do a live demo if you have a product that's worth showing off. And this is particularly true if you do anything like a B2C app. Because if you tell me in a pitch, we have great usability and the users will love our design, but then you don't show me the usability in action, I will always say, whatever, I don't believe them. So you have to show me, and that only works if you do a live demo. The next thing you want to do after you've talked about your product is talking about the market. And the market is really important for investors because they need to know what's the potential out there. But market doesn't just mean market size. So don't just put a giant number on a chart and say it's a $15 billion market. That's nice, but that's not all. What people really want to know is about how is the market changing. So what's the status of the market? What is some background information? What you want to achieve in this part of your presentation is you want to show people the opportunity. So where you made them feel the pain in the beginning, now you make them feel the opportunity of how can we make a lot of money in this market. This is what you want to do here. And you do it by showing people numbers, but you also do it by educating them. Because this is one thing that investors always tell me. People don't educate me about the markets they're in. An investor is a very smart person, but they can't know everything. They can't know all the markets in all the countries. So specifically, if you're talking to an investor from abroad, make sure you educate them about the markets that you're in. Because otherwise, they'll be lost and they'll be like, I have no idea. And they want to invest in experts. So they want to invest in somebody who can tell them about specific markets that they didn't know about. And they will check this information, so make sure that everything you say is true. But for the pitch, they will accept what you tell them, and they'll be that much more interested because they say, oh, I didn't know that. That's a great opportunity. The next thing you want to talk about is your business model. And this is something that still a lot of entrepreneurs forget. And it always leads to the first question from the jury. So how are you making money? And that's a question you don't want to get because it always sounds like you're not going to make money. And that's just psychologically terrible. So make sure you answer this question. It doesn't mean you have to talk about it for a long time because you very quickly can say, we have a software as a service model with a monthly subscription fee. We're an ad-based business. Whatever. One sentence might take 10 seconds, but people know what your business model is. And then if they have detailed questions like, how much are you charging per month? That's a good question to have because it means they understood that you have a business model and they just want to know more about it. After this, you want to have a look at the competition. And with the competition slide, this is one of the hardest ones to do. And a lot of entrepreneurs spend a lot of time on it and they make charts that look very scientific but really don't make that much sense. So my only advice on this, and I could talk about it probably for half an hour, which I'm not going to do, but my one advice for you is make it simple. Instead of doing a fancy chart that has 10 potential competitors that don't really do what you do, try to think from your customer's perspective. If they're thinking about buying something, they consider your product and they maybe consider 2 or 3 other ones. Then just mention those companies and tell me in your pitch, how are you better and different than those 3? And then I, as the audience, can decide, okay, this sounds like a good idea, this sounds like something that a customer would want. So make it simple and focus on the most important competitors. After the competition, you want to talk about your traction. And traction means anything you've achieved. This could be numbers, it could be partnerships, it could even be just customer validation if you're very early on. And don't think about traction just in terms of big numbers. So it doesn't have to be 100,000 users. If you have 100 users and you've learned a lot from them and they have given you great feedback on what you're doing, this can be just as exciting for somebody who listens to your pitch. And let's be honest, traction is where winning happens in a pitch. If you have great numbers, everything else doesn't matter. If you have really, really, really great numbers, don't even worry about your pitch. Just write those great numbers on a napkin, hold it in front of investors' faces, and they will immediately invest. So traction is where winning happens, but make sure that even if you don't have giant numbers, you can already show that what you're doing is working. After your achievements, you have to look at least one of these 2 things: marketing or technology. And normally, for most startups, it's one or the other. Because if you're building something that's easy to build, but then hard to market, you want to talk about your specific marketing plan. On the other hand, if it's something that it's hard to build, but easy to market once you've built it, then you want to talk more about the technology. This also, of course, depends on time. If you don't have a lot of time, maybe you leave these 2 points out. But if you have time for it, and if you say there's something specific about your technology or there's a great idea in your marketing, then do talk about it. But probably make it quick. This is the other place to talk about the team. If you haven't done it in the beginning, you can talk about your team here. And the reason for putting the team in the end is, on a team slide, you want to show pictures of your co-founders, you want to give a little bit of information what you did in the past. So there tends to be a little more text on this slide than on other ones. And that's fine, as long as you give people time to read it. And if you have it on the very, very last slide, then just like the first slide, the cover slide that stays on before your time starts, your last slide stays on after your time runs out. So when everybody's clapping and they're taking the microphone from you, the last slide is still visible. So if you have the team slide here, people can read a little bit, some bullet points about this co-founder worked 5 years at McKinsey, this co-founder worked 10 years at Google. That's something that's really valuable. So you can use your team slide as a little bit of a buffer. If you have time, you talk about each individual co-founder. If you don't have time, people can still have a look at it while you are finishing off your pitch. The last thing you want to do in your pitch is you want to ask for something very specific. And you want to have a call to action. So just like your website has a button that says buy, you want to have a pitch that has a spot where you basically say, this is what I want from you, my audience, today. So have a specific call to action. And this goes back to when we talked about how you build your pitch, where you first think about what's your goal. And your goal for each pitch can be different. And it will change the call to action that you're doing for each pitch. So make sure you know exactly what you want from this audience and ask for it. If it's investment, tell people you're raising money. If you're looking for partners, then ask for partners in a specific field. If you're looking for co-founders, then say so. So this is the end of your presentation, and you want to make sure that you finish your pitch strong, because people will always remember the way you finished your pitch. So make sure that your last sentence is something that you know exactly what you want to say, and say it specifically like that and have a very strong appeal to your audience. This is all I want to say about the 5-minute pitch right now. But I want to talk very briefly about the other pitches we talked about and how you can build them out of this one. So when we're looking at a 20-minute presentation, obviously, all you have to do is take this presentation for 5 minutes and fill it in with a lot more detail. So you give a lot more detail on anything you do, you show more of your product, you show more of the market data you have, you show more about your competition. I think it's quite easy to do and very few entrepreneurs struggle with it. The other way around, it's very hard. How to limit yourself to 5 minutes. 20 minutes, most of the time, is fine. When we look at the email slide deck, also it's quite easy. You take this 5-minute pitch and you fill it in with a lot more text and a lot of information on the slides because you're not going to be there talking about it. Turn it into a PDF and it's ready to send out. A little harder is to turn it into a one-sentence pitch. But what you probably want to focus on is the problem you're solving and how you're solving it. And then you can maybe add one more thing where you're saying, okay, problem, solution, and one special thing about what we're doing. This could be something about the market that shows the opportunity. It could be something about the team. It could be some traction that you already have. It could be a partnership that you already signed. This is very, very hard, and you have to work on your one-sentence pitch quite a lot. And also, when you do a 1-minute pitch, it will be very similar to the one-sentence pitch, but with more details. So I think in a 1-minute pitch, you can talk about the problem, you can talk about the solution, you can talk a tiny bit about your product, what it actually does, and then you probably want to say something about the market and the business model that you have. But be clear that a one-sentence pitch and a 1-minute pitch is never a finished product. It's never something where you say, this is all you'll ever get from me, and then people come back to you. But it's really just a teaser showing them something interesting where then there's future conversation, there's more input, where they really understand what your startup is all about.